Well, welcome everybody to our second care session. The first thing that I need to do is to apologize to all of you who tried to join using our earlier link. We've experienced some technical difficulties this morning. However, it looks as if we have managed now to overcome them. So whether you are joining us on our YouTube channel or you are joining us on Facebook Live, you are very, very welcome with us this morning. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for bearing with us. And now that we are together, we can get right on and talk about the topic for our second care session. We're going to be thinking about the issue of abortion. It's a sensitive topic, complicated topic, and it often leads to strong emotions on all sides. And yet it is an issue that we need to be talking about. Right from our very beginning at CARE, we have worked on this issue, and we believe that it is absolutely critical to hold out hope, love, and compassion to women who experience a crisis pregnancy and defend the value of life from conception onwards. My name is James. I'm head of communications at CARE, and joining me on this week's care sessions is my colleague Naomi, who is our communications officer, and Naomi will be bringing her own perspective to this issue of abortion. I hope that whatever we discuss together will be helpful for all of you. If you have any questions about the things that we are discussing, please just let us know in the comments below. And Naomi, welcome to Care Sessions.
Hello, thank you so much.
So Naomi, we're going to be talking about this issue of abortion on this week's session. It's a sensitive issue, isn't it?
It's a very sensitive issue, yes. And I think it's so important whenever we talk about this issue that we arrive at it always with the utmost compassion for women, particularly who have experienced abortion, men that have experienced abortion, and just understanding that it can be a really painful issue for people to talk about.
You're unusual in one sense that you're a young woman, but you're also passionately pro-life. Some people would say that is a very rare thing in our society. Why are you a young woman? Why are you pro-life?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I think people are quite surprised when I talk to them about my views on abortion, and you can often there's a lot of assumptions that people make about anyone that holds the view that abortion maybe isn't good for women or isn't good for society. I think for me, I'd always kind of had a view that abortion was wrong and that it wasn't good for women. But I think like a lot of people, I hadn't really thought through the issue in a lot of depth. It just wasn't something that affected me personally. I'd had some friends that had abortions, but it just wasn't really something I'd thought about in a lot of detail. And it was really when I was studying law a few years ago, and one of the essay questions I had to write was about abortion law in the UK and looking at whether a fetus in the womb is a person or not. And really, as I engaged with all of the arguments that ethicists and philosophers and legal scholars make on this topic, and particularly the way that they try and kind of justify abortion based on arguments around what a person is, I started to kind of really question the approach they were taking. And it was actually when I read a pro-choice philosopher talking about how we have to be really careful how we describe humanity and personhood, because it's been used in the past to justify things like slavery and genocide. And she was saying, a fetus will be the only kind of category of a human that is not classed as a person. And as I engaged with this, I just felt that God really stirred my heart, and that actually babies in the womb are being dehumanized, and their personhood is being stripped from them. And so I suppose that was the point where I really felt like not only do I want to advocate for women, but I really want to advocate for babies in the womb as well. And for me, I see more and more how the Bible speaks into this issue. Jeremiah 1 talks about God calling Jeremiah before he was formed in the womb, that he was known. Psalm 139, David talks about God knitting him in his mother's womb. And I think the Bible is clear that we need to speak up for those who are voiceless. And I see women who also as voiceless individuals in this debate. So for me, it's both seeing the impact it has on women, and I think that's why you can be pro-women and pro-life, because you care about the harm abortion does to them, but also pro-baby and wanting to advocate for them as well.
It's fascinating what you say there about the biblical text that you mentioned, Jeremiah, for example, also the Psalm as well. And of course, there's that other great text that we often talk about at Care, the very beginning of the Bible, in the account that we have of God's creation of the universe. And this incredible thing that happens, the second act of creation on the sixth day, is when there's a pause in the narrative, and all of a sudden God says, let us make man in our image. And then he made them male and female. And he doesn't say that about anything else. He doesn't say it about the birds or the trees or the sea or the land or any of the animals. He says it uniquely about human beings. And I think, would you agree that actually the Bible's teaching about dignity and value is an incredibly positive message that our society needs?
Absolutely. What is so important to remember is that your dignity is inherent by being made in the image of God. No one can take away your value and your personhood, essentially. So when you take God out of the picture, that's when your personhood becomes a debate, And again, that's what I'm saying. It's led to things like genocide and slavery, and obviously abortion now. And so that's why the Bible and the Christian worldview is so radically different. And obviously in Roman culture, when Christianity was exploding onto the scene, infanticide was widespread, and babies and women, anyone with a disability, had no dignity in society at all. And actually it was Christianity that came in and had this radically different ethic that transformed the lives of so many women, and obviously gave dignity to unborn babies as well.
It's fantastic. Yeah. Again, just to say to all of you watching on YouTube, on Facebook Live, if you've just joined us, it's great to have you with us. We're talking about the issue of abortion. We'd love to hear your thoughts, your opinions and reflections on what Naomi and I are discussing. Do let us know in the comments on YouTube, Facebook Live, some of your own thoughts and reflections, and we promise we will reply and get back to you as soon as we can. Naomi, I want us to move on now and just talk a little bit about some of the challenges that we've seen. It's well documented that in Great Britain we have the 1967 Abortion Act, and even more recently there's been a very significant law change when it comes to abortion in Northern Ireland. And I just want us to focus in on some of the challenges that we've seen, particularly in recent months, with the lockdown as well. First of all, just talking about Northern Ireland, we know that in Great Britain since 1967, there's been more than 9 million abortions that have taken place. It used to be the case that Northern Ireland had a very different law when it comes to abortion, but that's now changed, hasn't it? So what has happened in Northern Ireland, and why is it so concerning?
Yeah, so to know that previously in Northern Ireland, the law allowed abortion to save the life of the mother, or if there was a significant risk to her, a long-term risk to her physical or mental health. And any intervention that was deliberately to end the life of the baby was not legal. And so Northern Ireland was essentially a pro-life country, and one of the last kind of pro-life countries. And we know from research that we carried out as part of Both Lives Matter that 100,000 people are alive in Northern Ireland today because they didn't introduce the 1967 Abortion Act. And that was held to be a robust estimate of the number of lives that have been saved by the Advertising Standards Authority. So So that's the impact of that law. And of course, there are many people in Northern Ireland that feel really strongly about this issue and really care about babies in the womb. And so what happened was, over a number of years, there have been attempts to change the law, and the campaign was kind of growing and growing over the last couple of years, particularly. So CARE's been very involved in that from the beginning. We've got colleagues in Northern Ireland who have worked so hard on this issue and campaigning and lobbying. And last summer, after many different attempts to change the law, one attempt was successful. So Stella Creasy, who's an MP, she tabled an amendment to a bill that was actually nothing to do with abortion. It was about the Northern Ireland Assembly. And as it goes in politics, sometimes people can slip in things through the kind of back route. So unfortunately, that amendment was successful. A number of MPs voted for it. And then in the House of Lords, it was actually made worse by another peer. And so very sadly, at that point, it was a bit sort of game over. And so there were some conditions on this law change. So the Northern Ireland Assembly had to be reformed in time in order for it not to change. And essentially what it was doing was decriminalising abortion completely in Northern Ireland. And obviously the idea of criminalising abortion isn't appealing to a lot of people, but it's important to remember that any law that surrounds abortion, if it's a criminal law, then it's basically affirming the personhood of a baby in the womb, because it becomes a serious offence to terminate that life. So the Assembly wasn't reformed by October last year, and then just a few months ago we saw regulations coming in Northern Ireland setting out the framework for how abortion services will be running there. So essentially the way the law is working now is abortion is available on request up to 12 weeks, can be carried out by a midwife. They can hand out abortion pills, or a nurse, which is different than Britain. And abortion is available up to 24 weeks on mental health grounds, which we know in Britain essentially means abortion on demand. And then again, similarly to Britain, up to birth in cases of disability. So the framework is more extreme than the law in Britain. And it was a real tragedy for us to see this go through.
It was a heartbreaking change in the law, because you've gone from one of the most pro-life laws when it comes to respecting the value of life to a law that is even more extreme than Great Britain, where since 1967 we've seen 9 million plus abortions take place. So that's one big challenge, but there's another one as well, another heartbreaking challenge that is still ongoing, and that's to do with home abortions. And this is to also connected with the coronavirus lockdown. So for people watching, the government at Westminster, the UK government, passed emergency legislation connected with the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. And Naomi, bizarrely, wrongly, disturbingly, frighteningly, that included some changes to policy when it comes to allowing women to take abortion pills at home. Can you just briefly talk us through what the situation is with that and where that's going? This is another big challenge that we're facing.
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, the government allowed women to take the second abortion pill at home, and so that was quite a significant change to the law. And so they'd have to take the first pill in the clinic and then take the second one at home. And we raised our concerns at the time about the impact that this would have on women potentially. And obviously, we're concerned about any policy that will potentially increase the numbers of abortions occurring. So there's been a push since then to allow women to take both abortion pills at home. Abortion providers, unsurprisingly, are pushing for this.
And that's BPAS and Mary Stokes
are pushing for this. And so during the coronavirus pandemic, because women weren't able to go to the clinic, or it was riskier for them to go to the clinic, the government decided to allow women to take both abortion pills at home through a process called telemedicine. So what happens is a woman will have a phone consultation with a GP who will then prescribe the abortion pills, and then they're sent to them in the post. And I'm sure people listening can imagine all sorts of scenarios where that could go wrong. The abortion pills could fall into the wrong hands. With a phone consultation, given that a large percentage of women are coerced into abortion and in domestic abuse situations. There's no guarantee through a phone consultation. There's no way of really safeguarding that woman and guaranteeing that she's not being coerced. And unfortunately, because there are some medical risks associated with medical abortion, it's not completely safe. We have already seen that 2 women have died as a result of this policy. A number of other women have reported to hospitals with hemorrhaging and other medical complications. So this is not a safe policy. We know that Christian Concern are currently challenging the government on this policy in a legal case. They've done an undercover investigation where they found that women were being prescribed these abortion pills when they're beyond the gestational limit that is recommended. So it's 9 weeks, 6 days. It's the limit. We know women have had abortions at 28 weeks, which by that point, the unborn baby is significantly larger than it would have been for other women in that gestational limit. And we know that there is one murder investigation going on into a baby that was actually aborted alive under this policy. So already the things that we have been warning about because we care about women, we're now seeing come to light, and it's obviously incredibly frustrating.
When you talk about these challenges, Northern Ireland, the way the law was changed there, the ongoing very liberal abortion law in Great Britain, then you talk about the 2 abortion pills being allowed to be taken at home, with all of the risks and the dangers of taking such medicine in an unmedical, non-medical environment, and so on and so forth. It seems obvious to us that this is dangerous, this is risky, this is wrong, this is going to harm not just unborn babies, but also women as well. And yet we make these arguments, we meet with people, we try to persuade them, and it seems again and again that we are just running into a brick wall. Why do you think it is that it's so difficult in our culture to be pro-life and for these arguments to cut through?
Yeah, I mean, I ask myself that question a lot. I think basically where our culture's at is, 10 years ago, maybe I remember being able to have discussions at university with people about abortion, and it wasn't so controversial. And the culture has moved to a place where we're kind of all encouraged to celebrate abortion. And I think particularly the way it's taken root in things like feminism and modern feminism, it's become this kind of central tenet of feminism that if you're pro-women and pro-women's rights and equality, then obviously abortion, you have to believe in abortion and in a woman's right to choose. And I think that's become such an entrenched view that anything kind of that's seen to threaten or oppose that is kind of anathema to people. So I also think we have to remember that this is a spiritual battle that we will face opposition. I've faced opposition because of the work I've done on this issue. And it's really hard to go through that. But I think that we all need to be speaking out and not be scared by the opposition that we face. This is a kind of a stronghold that we need to keep fighting against, and we know God is on our side. So yeah.
Amazing. And you've given us in that answer, Naomi, you've given us an encouragement by talking about God being on our side. And just add to what you're saying, it also seems to me that this is the inevitable result of society choosing to reject God and reject his wisdom and his ways, and where that then leads you and where that then ends up is you don't have strong enough foundation for respecting the value and dignity of human beings, and that will lead you to take the view and believe the view that in the womb it's not a person, it's not a human being, and therefore it's do with it what you will, as it were. Whereas the Christian worldview would find that abhorrent because that is a person that we're talking about, and so on. But Care, we want to encourage you as well, all of you watching YouTube and Facebook. We want to encourage you. We've talked about some of the challenges. There are many more. We're just scratching the surface. Very, very briefly, we just want to share some encouragements with you. Naomi, talk to us about a recent encouragement with the domestic abuse bill, and one other encouragement as well, and then we'll we'll move on to the Q&A. So Naomi, an encouragement, a pro-life win, I heard through the grapevine, happened recently. Is that possible? Is it real? Can you confirm that this is true?
Yes. Incredibly, the sort of biggest, I suppose, threat that seemed to be looming on the horizon after Northern Ireland was the domestic abuse bill. So campaigners have been wanting to what's called decriminalise abortion for several years. And we know that some of them want to decriminalise it up to birth. So again, what this means is babies in the womb removes all their personhood. Any kind of remaining legal protection they have is just gone. And obviously all of the kind of caveats around abortion are removed or become redundant. So we were really, really concerned about this and I've been really kind of preparing for this moment for several years. Because they had said clearly, the abortion kind of lobbyists, that they were going to use the domestic abuse bill to change the law. But incredibly, Diana Johnson MP, who is a kind of leading pro-abortion MP, she tried to table 2 amendments to the bill. One was decriminalising abortion. The other one was to allow women to take abortion pills at home after the coronavirus pandemic, kind of the limitation on that. And amazingly, the decriminalisation amendment was completely rejected by the Speaker. It was considered to not be within the scope of the bill at all. So we were really, really relieved to see that was completely taken off the table. And then the home abortion pill amendment was badly drafted. There were several MPs who, even though they might take a pro-choice stance, saw that it would have actually been more dangerous for women for that to have been successfully added to the bill. So incredibly, Diana Johnson removed the amendment. She withdrew it completely, so it wasn't voted on. So that was a huge relief for us because it could have been really concerning. The government are doing a consultation. They have agreed to do consultation on home abortions to decide whether they want to continue that policy. Hopefully, given that 2 women have died and other women have suffered as a result of this, that will not be a successful change to the law. But really, we were incredibly relieved, and it was a real victory for us.
And it was an answer to prayer. And I just want to also say again to folk who are watching that we could not have done that or achieved that without your efforts, your endeavours. Many of you prayed about this issue and stood with us in that way. Many of you took the time to contact your MP about these amendments, even up to moments before the debate took place. So thank you so much. And it is a reminder, isn't it, that we can, with God's grace and help, we can affect positive change when we get involved and when we communicate with our MPs, we write to peers, and we try to communicate the truth. That God, I think, time after time, he does honor that, which is tremendous. Naomi, one more encouragement there. There's a new pro-life bill, I understand, introduced by a Christian MP called Fiona Bruce, the cleft palate, cleft lip, clubfoot abortion bill. That's not its technical title, but very, very quickly, what's that bill doing? Is it going to succeed? It's another positive pro-life initiative?
Yeah, so what that bill is doing is making abortion illegal for very minor disabilities like cleft palate, clubfoot. The Abortion Act, as I mentioned, allows for disability up to birth. And it's supposed to be for, it's called severe handicapped in the law, but that has been interpreted in practice to include very minor disabilities. I mean, at CARE, we don't believe abortion is the right response for any kind of disability that's been diagnosed for a baby in the womb, but particularly for these very minor, easily correctable conditions. And Fiona Bruce, her son actually had clubfoot, so this is a very personal experience for her. And she's seen how that was able to be corrected through surgery and rehabilitation, and he's now thriving. He's doing a PhD at Oxford, and so we're very hopeful that this bill, which is a very sensible change to the law, will receive enough support. It's already got cross-party support, so we're hopeful that it will have some traction, at least raise awareness that this is actually going on, because I think a lot of people don't know that there are around 200 of these abortions every few years, so it is still a significant number.
It's fantastic. Time is pressing on, but very quickly, let me just share with you as well, alongside the pro-life win on the domestic abuse bill, alongside this new pro-life bill aiming to correct our current law to make it explicitly clear that abortion on the grounds of these treatable disabilities up to birth is no longer legal. Alongside that, there's an amazing Down syndrome campaigner called Heidi Crowther, who has launched a legal challenge against the law that currently in Great Britain and soon in Northern Ireland will allow for abortion up to birth for Down syndrome. Praise God for people like Heidi, who's speaking out in the media and is demonstrating such grace and courage. There's another legal challenge from a pro-life perspective as well. By the way, you can find out all about these different things on our website, care.org.uk. And alongside that, there's also a growth in pro-life societies at universities as well, which is so exciting. And so we praise God for these incredible initiatives that are taking place. Naomi, we've got a few minutes for some questions. Thank you to those of you who took the time to contact us. Really, I guess, question that may be on people's minds and hearts. And by the way, again, if you're watching, do put some questions in the comments underneath and we will get back to you. A question that some people might have, Naomi, is what do I do if a friend of mine has had an abortion and shares that information with me?
Yeah, great question. I think the most important thing that we can do as Christians is to listen to people first and foremost, and to really understand where someone is at on their experience of abortion. And our task is to come alongside them, no matter how we feel about the action that they've taken. Our task is to show compassion and love, because that's what Jesus did and has done for us. So I think the Russell T. Moore, who works in America, he's written a really good book on this issue in terms of responding to this pastorally, and he talks about how people might be burdened in different ways on this issue. So one way might be they've got a burden of deception, so they don't necessarily see fully what they've done and how that's affected them and their baby. And so in that situation, it's talking to people about dignity and the dignity of every human being, and sharing some biblical perspective on that. But also, I mean, most often it will be this the kind of burden of accusation. So women and men will feel, how can God possibly accept me with this thing that I've done? And for that, it's speaking the truth of the gospel into their situation. So there's no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus, and that God looks on them as he sees Jesus, he says, well done, good and faithful servant. So I think that's the most important thing we can do, is just speak the gospel into their situation and show compassion.
Naomi, I've been inspired by what you've been sharing, your knowledge of this issue, your own passion about it. I really want to know more. I want to dig deeper into this issue. Can you recommend, for me and for people watching on YouTube, Facebook Live, can you recommend some, maybe just 2 things that they could helpfully read on this issue to understand it more?
Absolutely. So this book's come out recently. It's Vaughan Roberts and Dr. Lizzie Ling. So it's just a really short book, just looking at abortion and kind of going through some of the ethics very briefly, but kind of from a Christian perspective, how we can approach this. This slightly larger book is John Wyatt, Matters of Life and Death. Fantastic book. John Wyatt's a good friend of Care. Fantastic book. It looks at issues of abortion, but also assisted suicide and a lot of other ethical issues in medicine. Just really sets out the kind of ethical arguments and our Christian response, but in more detail. John is a doctor and professor of ethics, so he's an expert on this issue.
So 2 books there. You can find both of them on Amazon, for example. And the first one, the Vaughan Roberts one, I think you can find it on the Good Book Company website as well. So really encourage you to get hold of that. It's a great kind of introduction to this issue. Naomi, thank you so much for your time. And to all of you who have been watching and joining us, we have barely even scratched the surface of this issue. But I think one thing that we want to say to all of you is that God's heart, God's ways for the value of life, for dignity, for treating people with respect and with love from conception right the way through to life's natural end. Surely that is a better story for our society than the narratives that people have bought into, where life is devalued and life is not respected. And we would love to partner with you to tell that better story. And so if you want to connect more with Cares Ministry, then please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please do like and follow our Facebook page. And please consider signing up for our weekly regular email updates as well, where we will furnish you with everything you need to pray about this issue and to stand with us in political action when the time comes. We need your help. Every single email, letter that you send to MPs, to peers, MSPs, MLAs, assembly members in Wales, everything that you do is being a voice for the voiceless, and we cannot do what we do without your help. So please do consider subscribing on YouTube, following and liking our Facebook page, signing up for our email updates. Here's some more good news for you. If you are registered for Care Sessions, we're going to be back next Thursday, 11 o'clock, looking at the issue of human trafficking. And we are really pleased. We've got a guest joining us from the International Justice Mission, fantastic anti-trafficking charity. So please do come again next Thursday, 11 o'clock. And if you are registered for Care Sessions, right after this session, you are going to receive a complimentary email with some bespoke resources, from prayers to links to our website, with helpful pieces, including content that Naomi has written, why she's 3 reasons why she's a pro-life woman, for example, and much, much more. So look out for that email later on. And again, from the bottom of my heart, from our heart at Care, thank you so much. And let us know where you've been watching from. Let us know if you found this session helpful, what we could do better in the future as well. And we look forward to being back with you next Thursday, 11 o'clock. And thank you again so much for joining with us. God bless you.